just might miss you, and I can't seem to find your water.
I'd like to tell you a story about community, the community of people, and the community of the relationship between people and animals. Beaver are an amazing animal. Not only are they unique in their appearance with their huge flipper-like tails and their gigantic teeth that never stop growing, but they play an altruistic role. Many species of flora and fauna depend upon the work of the beaver maintaining the ponds in which the beaver live. They live there, but they don't eat there. Many other species eat out of the ponds, but the beaver eat what is along the sides of the ponds and what grows as a result of the pond being there, but not actually what is in the pond. And this is the story of the relationship of a number of people who decided that the beaver needed a little bit of help in reestablishing their environment after another person had decided to destroy it.
In 1995, the story spread through town that someone had dynamited the Beaver Dam. 5 people, Judy and Dan Mulford, Rob Schulteis, Tim Altek, and Michael Sattler, all independently yet simultaneously took it upon themselves to do what no one else, not the town, not Parks and Recreation, were able or willing to do. These 5 people repaired not only the Beaver Dam, but also the rip between nature and the will of man.
It was a story about altruism. It was a story about the best of nature. It was a story about the best of human nature, but it was also a story about the worst of human nature.
Yeah.
Because of everybody helping with it, it raised the consciousness of the town.
There are some breeds of birds, especially waterfowl, that are completely dependent upon the beaver ponds. An example of that would be mallards, mergansers, the ring-necked duck, the most beautiful duck in all of North America, the wood duck.
Pretty soon there were muskrats there, and migratory birds were landing there again. And the most mystical thing were the pelicans, I believe, that landed there. And at dawn, and J. Michael Brown said they landed and kind of looked around, and then they took off and flew in a perfect V down the length of Main Street. Very mystical stuff when you mess with the headwaters of a river or you fix it, I think. Well, my memory of how it came about was that a certain ex-Telluridian, whose name will remain forever untold, who doesn't live here anymore, I think had blown a hole in the beaver pond, beaver dam, because he stupidly built his house in the middle of a beaver flooded area. And he and his wife went berserk and were shooting at beavers, and I believe he actually did blow a hole in it with dynamite. And so the beaver pond drained, and of course the beavers, if they were inhabiting they were inhabiting it, there was at least a pair, fled the area because they had no protection against the approximately 800,000 dogs that run loose in Telluride. So I think it started out with Michael and myself and Judy Mulford
But 10 years ago, in 1995, we came up here before our grandchildren were here, and the pond wasn't. It was just this big, muddy hole.
So we began by spending our own money, buying Visqueen, and then we ended up, I believe, well, I'll just say I did this. I took the sandbags the town had for protecting their path, and we used those to appropriated them to fill in the hole.
We set up a bank account and called the Eco Vigilante, I think, bank account for the Beaver Pond. And again, the city council was not for this, and I was so upset. And we knew we had to sandbag it and get the hole figured, closed up. So I thought, well, we have to use biodegradable things. So I went to the free box and I got tights, cotton tights and cotton pants, and we fill them with dirt and we put them in there, and that helped a little bit, and it filled up, and then it pushed out again. So my husband Danny and I went down to Montrose to the potato factory, or the place potato growers co-op, and we got all of these gunny sacks, and we brought these up and filled them with mud and dirt, and again we didn't want to use any plastic, and there were some rocks and stuff, but it blew out. I don't know how many times it blew out again. And then my husband said, Judy, just give it up. And I said, I can't. I have to do this every day for the rest of my life.
We had kind of given up before getting all those people together from Greenbacks. And as it turns out, unbeknownst to us, Tim had been hanging out at the skate ramps, watching us. And I think a certain amount of him was laughing at our efforts, and a certain amount of him was saying, these guys can use my help, and they seem to be doing the right thing, and maybe I should go over and help. I'm not sure if I should. And so after we had given up, this thing had blown out, Tim took it upon himself one day to get out there with a shovel, and he started digging and throwing mud, slinging this stuff. And he managed all by himself, as I recall, to stop the big hole and to get the water to begin to fill again. And we all came in a day after or something and realized what was happening. I think we even caught him there at the very tail end. He was trying to slink away and didn't want to take any credit or responsibility, and we kind of engaged him in conversation, and he reluctantly admitted what he had done. And at that point, we all forged this union, and that's when we got this group of people together with the green box and built this structure around what he had done. But if it wasn't for him filling up that hole, I think we all would have lost all of our drive to continue.
I was sorry that the beaver ponds were being damaged, and then I was inspired to get a shovel and to fix them. I went to the free box and got some quilts and some sheets and some other fabrics. I reasoned that I needed some way to dam up the beaver pond, and then I wove the fabrics and the and logs, and built my own dam, and I worked pretty hard at it for half a day or more, and just and rebuilt the dam, and it started holding water, and it came back.
Although it did blow out again after
yeah.
We did about 3 tries, and in all honesty, to recount the myth as it really is, I was never there when we successfully patched, because every time we did it 3 or 4 times, and the dam would break underneath, because beavers are a lot better at dam building than we are.
So they build this pond in order to make it more safe for their offspring. But in doing so, they create an explosion of insect life that lives and breeds on this pond. And that explosion of insect life then in turn creates an explosion of other life forms.
The only thing to add are the amazing trout that would reappear every time the water came in. These beautiful red-colored trout would appear out of kind of a cave underneath the riverbank, and I don't know how they survived in between. But it was really just an amazing thing. And the town, of course, once it was done, was like, "Hooray for the beaver pond!" You know, I don't know how it happened, but we have our beaver pond back. So
here we sit in our environment, and yet I don't have anything against that. I don't have anything against anything. I am supporting also wildlife and beauty and good lifestyle.
One of the other really fascinating things that occurs with the creation of the pond is that it simply spreads the water out. Instead of flowing through a narrow channel and having banks upon which animals can live, now you've got a wide surface and a much larger bank. And with that, you get the rising of the water table. And the rising of the water table creates more sedges, rushes, grasses, and forbs, a fancy way of saying flowering plants. And with all of those increased plants around the pond, then you get those wild creatures who depend as herbivores upon those plants.
Being a mother and a grandmother, the beavers are nuclear extended families, and family is really, really important to me. And as I understand, they indiscriminately killed like part of the nuclear family. And there was a huge hole over in the side, and there were a lot of rumors going around that somebody had dynamited it and somebody had killed the beavers because there were too many beavers up here. And I was devastated. I was horrified. I was completely stunned.
the town was totally against it, of course, in their great environmental tradition, but these people were coming out from Texas and, "Let me bring you some cookies. My grandkids saw what you're doing. They love this pond," and this kind of thing. It was really awesome.
And I'd gotten a lot of girlfriends together. They said they'd do it, and then they got scared because they thought it was against the city council, it was against the law, they'd be arrested, they'd go to jail. I just didn't care. So I became really, really driven and an activist. I mean, there are few times in people's lives where you just, this is what you have to do no matter what. It becomes the most important thing in your life. And so one of the things that we did, and I brought some pictures from my scrapbook that are kind of neat, is we did an environmental piece that we did for the AHA school. We came and we got all of, harvested some of the willows, and we made this big sculptural piece that went into a show at the AHA. And it shows here them harvesting some of the willows, which we didn't get permission, we just did it, but I know how to harvest correctly. And you can see right here how dry it was. So we take the raft in, we put it, it was just right over in this little corner. This is where we built it. This huge, huge environmental sculpture that was probably, well, you can see it was about 15 feet high and probably 10, 12 feet in diameter. What I was scared about, that this would be turned into prime real estate. It's probably now the most valuable beaver pond in the entire world now.
Take me with you. Please don't leave me behind. I just might miss you, and I can't seem to find your water. I've seen your heart's desire, just might reach you.
We often say that a wetland is like a sponge. And we know that this sponge that is created by this backup of the water, the extra mud on the banks of the dam, the soil that is scooped out of the bottom of the pond, all of the wood material that's added by the beaver, all of the extra sawgrass that we see growing on the edge of the pond, all of the sedges and rushes and the willows that come and sprout because of the rising of the water table, acts like a sponge to collect and absorb and disperse both poisons in the water, and acts as a sponge to absorb water during high runoff and prevents flooding downstream.
This was a upper valley full of beaver ponds and dams, and then they silted up and they formed this really rich meadow that's one of the delights of our community. And even just the idea of payback to the beavers is giving them some niche in this town that they enabled to happen.
The point is showing how the beaver are altruistic in their approach, and there are altruistic people who lent themselves to the effort of the beaver in order to allow the beaver to continue doing their altruistic work. And that's what I would like to congratulate you on and show my appreciation. Thank you for, because it really was your altruism, and it really was you playing the part of a beaver in human society as far as I was concerned.